What is up, everyone? It is Nico and Ash here. I'm super excited because I've been wanting to have you on for a while, and now we Corona is not the best, right? But it gives us ample time to actually have great conversations because you don't have to travel as much, I don't have to travel as much, and we can have these conversations and hopefully change someone's world today.
So, thanks for having me on. I'm super excited to be chatting to you live.
And we're going to start this off by saying you're still safe, right? Because the East Coast is getting hit.
We are like an hour and a half outside of Boston and like 4-ish hours away from New York. So we're kind of away from the worst of it.
Oh, that's good. I'm just like, I have so many friends on the East Coast. And I'm just like, please, like, stay in. Like, right now.
I know.
So, Ash, introduce yourself to the community.
Yeah, so my name is Ash McGrath. I am a copywriter. I've been on LinkedIn for 2.5, 3 years creating content. And I met Nico around the time that I started on LinkedIn, and we've, made sure that we've stayed connected through all that time. So he's a good friend of mine. Started off specializing in website copy. I've recently pivoted to creating monthly content and for social media and for other brands and agencies. So that's what I do. And I've scaled my business now where it started as just me, and now I have a team of people with me. So that's been a fun journey, and it's cool.
Talk to me through the pivot, because I think that's something that a lot of business owners are going through right now. It's daunting. Like, you start with this plan.
Yep.
And then it changes. So walk us through like how that process was.
Yeah. So I think the thing that you hear about service-based businesses a lot from business-minded people is that service-based businesses are notoriously hard to scale. It's difficult to separate your time away from your money. And starting as a website copywriter, it was me personally doing a lot of bespoke work with my clients, one-on-one, very high touch work, really trying to nail that voice and that brand so that I could create websites that were converting well for these businesses. While I love the work, again, it was very high touch. It was just me working either with a small team or an individual to create a website over a series of weeks, right? And so that's weeks of my time that was tied up. And I began to very quickly start to get burnt out on the, not only like doing the client work, but then also marketing my business and creating content for my business and making sure that my back end and processes were really tight. So I had to make a shift at some point. And so I decided, actually through a stroke of luck, really, I was approached by a few people, a few connections on LinkedIn who knew my work and knew me. And they started asking me if I could write copy for content. And I was like, well, sure, I'll give it a shot, And then soon started to realize that it was work that I could do much quicker. It was work that I could then get the support of the team to do with me. The other benefit was that it was monthly ongoing work, so I could develop that relationship with a client over a series of months rather than working with them for 6 weeks and then never really engaging with them again. So when I made that pivot, I really made the decision of I'm going to focus my core services over here on content. And then when the website work comes in, I get to kind of pick and choose to work on the website that I'm really excited about. The ones I want to give 6 to 8 weeks of my time to personally. So, and I'm able to obviously charge much more for a service like that. But again, I still have all of this other stuff happening in the background. And the benefit for me from a purely business owner perspective there was being able to create a business model that allowed me to have some kind of predictable monthly income. And not even from the sense of like me personally wanting an income, but being able to know how I can prioritize budgets for my business and where I can and should spend money, because now I can project where my income and where my revenue is going to be. So now I know I can take 10,000 marketing dollars and put them here. When you're working more of these like ad hoc projects, they're large, higher ticket projects. But again, the work is less consistent, less predictable. So that's really kind of where my journey was at.
And I think it's also interesting because one thing you actually did not talk about is that this isn't the only focus that you have. You, much like me, have a whole different work and family and all these things. And the reason I really think it's so interesting that you're talking about that monthly is because now you can scale up, because if you know the next 6 months that you have at least X amount of dollars coming in, you can hire someone to help you with that.
Mhm.
because the problem with service-based companies is, from what I've seen, is it's hard to do the work and market the business like you were talking about. So
Mhm.
there's this give and take. So that's why I'm so glad you're talking about that. So walk us through really, the whole client onboarding, especially right now. Like, how has your business really been working since this whole fear of Corona has set in,
Mhm.
because it's changing the industry.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I'm never a hard sell person. Like, if anybody has ever worked with me, they know this, or if anybody has seen any of my content, I don't make these hard sells. I don't, people will approach me. So I'm very much about having that inbound connection, putting the information and the value out there and allowing people to make that decision about whether or not they want to work with me based off of that. So with that said, in terms of like strategy or what I'm doing now for client onboarding or even any of my sales process, I'm really just making sure that the clients I already have are just very well taken care of, that I'm making sure that me and my team is going above and beyond to
Mhm.
make sure that like they're all okay, that their business is doing okay, trying to be sensitive to the fact that some of their businesses have been impacted by this, and trying to be creative about how to help them pivot and help their marketing pivot. So I'm really, in terms of my own business, I'm just trying to focus on my customers that I have. It's not to say that I'm not taking calls from people who are interested in engaging with me.
Mm.
And if those come through, that's really great. But again, I've actually started to shift and pivot some of my own content. If any of you have followed me for any number of time, you'll know that my active content creation dropped off for a while. And this was, again, because I was getting extremely busy and it was hard to balance the two. Now that I've created a team and have been able to kind of delegate and outsource some of my aspects of my business to my team, I am now pivoting to, okay, how can I get back on really consistent content
Mhm.
creation? And so the content that I'm going to be putting out in the next coming weeks, it's really just all about like relating to the rest of my audience. Like, how are you guys doing? Here's how I'm spending my time, and here's what's working or not working for me.
Mhm.
It's really about getting to people on a relational level and entertaining people, as crazy as that sounds. Like, people want a distraction from what's going on right now. And so, it's like knowing that fine line.
No, I think I wouldn't even say it's a distraction. It's you want to know that people are human. Like,
Hmm.
I read this thing about the difference between influencers and celebrities. Like a
Hmm.
celebrity you can't identify with. You would never go
Right.
to a celebrity and be like, "Hey, saw that post, blah blah blah." With influencer, with someone who is talking about what they're actually going through, you're so much more comfortable. And I mean, that's how our relationship started, right?
Hmm.
We just jumped on the phone because there's mutual understanding about what the other person does and an interest to build something.
Yeah.
So I want to actually take this a little bit more back.
Sure.
You haven't had a very typical journey into copy.
No.
So, and I think it's always interesting because I want people to know that there is no path, right? That's the
Mhm.
theme of the show. There's no path. So,
Yeah.
how did you get to this specific point?
So, as you already know this, but I really got into copy as a necessity, right? So,
Mhm.
my husband's in a full-time, really demanding engineering program right now. I was a social worker, case management, and we needed to have two incomes, not one, because we had two kids in full-time care, and who lives off of one income anymore? So, long story short, I really had to take an audit of what skills do I possess right now that somebody would be willing to pay me for. And it really just turned into, what have I always been good at? Okay, I really love to read. I've always been great at writing. Great. I'm going to teach myself how to write. How are people making money writing? Okay, well, I'm not going to go the path of writing a book. What are some other things that people are doing for writing? I did more research, found copywriting, spent lots of money, time, and energy on really learning how to do it well. Probably a year and a half to 2 years of like really deep study on the subject, and started to get my first batch of clients. I started on Upwork, getting really low paying jobs and just doing that whole thing. But I started to get more and more confident on the work that I was doing. B, I started building long term relationships with clients who kept coming back. And also, I got way more comfortable at just like the day to day of running business. So there's like a difference in my mind. When I shifted my perspective of I'm a freelancer to I'm a business owner, it really changed everything for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so true. It's even when you just said that, I was like, once you start seeing yourself as, okay, this isn't just me, especially when you bring on a team. It's not you at all. It's purely them. But I want to kind of pause and talk about the fact that you identified a skill that you had, but you invested into actually learning and managing that skill. I think that's one thing that people need to understand is you might be really good at this, but you still need to add on top of it. So walk us through just a very brief understanding of, okay, you decided copy, and what did you do after that? Like, what resources did you get, time invested? What was that process like?
Well, I think the beginning of it was a lot of just shooting in the dark, right? Because again, if anybody who is a digital marketer, the one thing that you start to understand about after digital marketing is you never see the internet the same after you are a digital marketer. So me coming in very fresh and not really understanding how, digital marketing or how, like, what the behind the scenes were of the way traffic is supposed to move through the internet. I stumbled definitely along a lot of bad information, misinformation, and really tried to make an attempt to figure out, like, who is the best in this industry? Who are the respected individuals in this industry? Who are those individuals affiliated with companies and businesses? Who are they affiliated with? And how can I get as close to their experience and their knowledge base as possible? And that really led me to places like Copy Blogger, a very well-known, copy and writing blog. Copy Hackers, a very well-known, like, conversion copy based education. They have a bunch of courses that are online, but they're very highly regarded. I also found out, like, what podcasts they were listening to. I joined this subscription-based service called the Copywriter Club, who were affiliated with all those other people, and they had their own podcast and their own mastermind. And so I really tried to make sure that if I was going to invest a significant amount of time and energy, like money or going through a course, I did my due diligence to make sure that course was absolutely legitimate.
No, I love that. It's you have to do your due diligence. There's so many people talking about copy or websites, but you really need to understand, do you really know what you're talking about? Because if not, then the information's already out there somewhere else, right? What in your mind is the most exciting part about copy today, whether it's on social media, on websites? What are you most excited about?
I'm excited about the fact that copy is not going anywhere. So it doesn't matter how industrialized or how digitized our society gets. Somebody is always going to need instructions for how to use a toaster or how to turn on their webcam or where they go to sign up for something. The words are not going anywhere. No matter where we go, we're going to need words around our products and services to be able to speak to then the individual on the other side. And so I just think that this is an exciting time for copy, because I think that copy is now becoming, people think copywriter and they think like legal copyrights, like trademark, it's not. Or they think like really old, out of date, like direct salesy kind of like the spammy crap that you get in your mailbox, either your physical mailbox or your email box. And there's just so much more. Like, literally anything that you see, a sign, something on the back of a mug, like all of that stuff has been written by a copywriter. Your Starbucks, anything on your Starbucks cup or there's copy everywhere. It's so ubiquitous. And so it's exciting because I think that there is actually more opportunity than ever for great copywriters. And the thing with copywriting is it's definitely one of those skills that everybody thinks they can do, and they can. Everybody can write some kind of coherent sentence that explains a product or service or the benefits or features of a product or service. But the differentiating factor is, can you do it well? Do you really understand the desire and motivation behind somebody's possible purchasing decision? And how do you funnel that, through to the end result? Eugene Schwartz is a really highly respected copywriter, and one of his famous quotes is like, desire can actually not be created. It can only be funneled. Like it can only be channeled. You can only channel desire. I cannot make you want to buy Nike shoes. I can't. You have to have that feeling inside, and then I have to find out what that feeling is and how can I stir that up, and how can I present to you this product or service as the solution to whatever you're already feeling.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about the statement, we buy with emotion and justify with logic? Do you believe it? Do you think
100%.
yeah?
100%. Yep. We absolutely do. I mean, it's really like, think of any like impulse purchase that you've ever made. You buy this thing, and then you have that moment of like, did I really need this, or should I have bought this? And then you immediately go into, okay, here's the reasons why I'm going to justify in my brain of why I should have bought this. I think that's a very simplistic view of that, but we all buy for a reason, and those reasons are usually to meet pretty basic emotional needs, as human beings. And again, that's, I could go on and on about why and the psychology of this, but yes, I wholeheartedly believe that we all buy emotionally, first and foremost.
It's because that's the one statement I always think about when I'm marketing, right? When I'm working with a service company or a product company, it's always, what's the outcome, the actual outcome of that, product or service. Usually if you work backwards, you can start justifying it, right? There's a certain point where it's like, it's very emotional. Like, do you really need those $100 shoes from Nike? Your emotion says you do, right? Because Nike stands for something. What's your favorite example of copy by any company, or that maybe something that you've done? I think I think everyone learns best by example.
I think that I don't have a specific like line of copy that I can kind of call up right now, but I think that I love copy that there's a super fine line between copy that is like really witty and engaging and makes you stop for a second and think, and then copy that there's been plenty of times where I've seen a copywriter, I've seen a billboard or something, and I'm like, oh man, they kind of missed the mark, but I get what they were going for. And so I just love it when it's really well executed. A very tight piece of copy that either makes you laugh or stops and makes you think, or just makes you kind of nod your head along like, yeah, I've been there. Yes, I get this. And so I think that that's my favorite kind of copy, is when it can be, when you can say more with less, but you still have that same emotional impact.
Any specific companies that you think knock it out the park?
I really like the glasses company, Warby Parker. I think that they have really interesting copy. I think that a lot of SaaS companies have really interesting copy. So I use Acuity Scheduling, the scheduler that I use, and I know who their copywriter is, and I really like her style and tone of copy, and the way that they work it into, like, even when you're signing somebody up and it's like the copy that's on a button, like they've put that level of detail and thought into what this button should say. And they just create like a really nice experience where you feel like you're just kind of sitting on the other end of the screen with a friend and working through some process. So if I'm setting up a new scheduling page or whatever, the copy is what makes it feel like a really personal experience.
I couldn't agree more. I got a thing from Grammarly the other day, and I don't open any of those like progress reports or anything. And the title was so engaging, Ash. I could not, like, it was so well executed. I had to click on it. I read through it, and that's the power of it. So I want to spend a couple of minutes, because I think the hardest.
I just thought of one, actually. I'm going to interrupt you for a second.
Do it.
So I get DSW emails, the shoe store. I don't know if they're all across America, but they're here on the East Coast. And I got an email from them one time that said, the subject line said, "Show us your nudes." And what they were advertising was like nude colored heels and sandals and whatever. But I thought that was really, that made me stop and open the email. So yeah, I just thought of that.
No, that's the thing, is like, that's stuck in your mind so well, right? And it's because, like, there's DSWs here, and I've seen ads that they do, and they're pretty good. We talk headlines. Yeah, headlines, I think, is the hardest thing for most people, because if you can't get the headline right, it doesn't matter how great your video or articles are, because it doesn't matter. So what's some tips that you have for headlines?
my biggest tip for headlines is don't reinvent the wheel. Okay. The age of the headline was long ago in terms of they figured out what worked. And I always say these like long dead white guys, right? Because it was like copywriting was like all these like guys with giant cigars and highball glasses back in the day. And so, but they figured out what worked, and there is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of headline frameworks that you can find for free online where you can plug in your information in. And I mean, again, there's some creativity involved here. It's not like you just, plugging into a template. You have to be creative, and you have to really thoughtfully think which headline is going to work and why and who's on the other end of this. But my one piece of advice is don't reinvent the wheel with the headline. Figure out. So there's a couple of really good ones. Like, for example, there's this concept in copywriting called opening loops, right? So what that means is you have to open up a loop. You have to leave something kind of hanging, which is why clickbait works extremely well, because all clickbait does is open loops. So it'll be something like, you'll never guess what Jennifer Aniston did. And now you're like, well, crap, now I want to know what she did. Like, if I know that this is a garbage ad on the other end, I just cannot not click that. And so it's those types of things, creating loops, asking a question, directly asking a question, and making that question very targeted to, something that's going to resonate with the individual. Like, somebody who, somebody who wants to purchase like a dating course or something, you could say, do you ever wish that you could talk to women confidently? And it's like, that's a question, but you're actually also referencing one of their major pain points, right? So those are really good kind of, places to go. Opening a loop, asking some kind of question or some kind of engaging sentence that makes somebody want to keep reading, or asking a really targeted question. The thing is like the whole point of your headline is just to get them to read the next sentence of your copy. And the whole point of that next sentence is to get them to read the next sentence after that. So when you're talking conversion and sales copy, you have to think in that mindset. You have to be very efficient with your words.
I want to talk perfection.
Sure.
Because in marketing and copy and video, there's always that, it's not quite there yet. You can spend hours and hours and hours crafting this beautiful piece, but you never post it. So how do you overcome that perfection, for your clients, for your copy?
Conversion copy is really good for this. So conversion copy is when you're plugging, let's say, a website. You create a course, and now you want to create a landing page to help sell that course, right? What people in conversion copywriting usually do is they test the crap out of something. So all you need to do is you need to make your best guess. You need to make an educated kind of guess about what is the minimum viable conversation that we need to have here, right? And so people who are familiar with like the lean startup type of ideology or any type of, that type of thinking, then the MVP will be familiar. And SaaS companies do this as well. Any product, software product companies, they're not putting out a perfect product. They're putting out the minimum viable product, and then based off of feedback that they're getting, they're making improvements to buttons or locations of things or checkout processes. It's the same with copy. So if you're writing, something, this is where the research becomes critically important, because you're not going to get it perfect, and you're never going to be able to speak. Even if you have narrowed down your demographic or narrowed down your targeted customer, you're still never going to be able to completely win over every single one of their hearts, because we're talking to people and they're all individuals. What you need to do then is do your due diligence, really, really, really deep research to understand who that target customer is, and make your best educated guess about what they need to hear based off of your research. And that will get you really close to the mark. And that will be enough, quite honestly. There's no such thing as perfect. And then later on, when you have more resources and more people on your team, you can get down to, let's try different versions of this same landing page and see which one works better, No,
I love it. It's putting it out there. It's the I forgot this really famous marketer that talked about creating content like a comedian putting out a bit. Like, you start with a very small audience and you just try a ton of things. You take the best of that, and then you take the bigger audience and bigger and bigger and bigger. It's very practical, but I think we all get there. Like, oh, was this article really that good? Or, I should just wait on this. And I'm trying to get more people to say, stop waiting. Let's just test it. Because the cost of entry to test is so low. It's especially here on LinkedIn. It's $0. It's just your effort. And you can see some real tangible business results based off of that. So, no, it's great. So we're getting to the tail end of the conversation. What's if you could tell anyone anything about copy, about entrepreneurship, starting a business, anything, what would that be?
I think it comes down to starting a business. You have to want it. And like, let's throw all of the like 5 habits of highly effective people. Let's throw like I wake up and take a freezing cold shower every morning because that's what Elon Musk does. Like, entrepreneurship is it's a roller coaster ride. It's difficult. It's in the trenches. You are going to do way more work than you ever want to do. But I say this with all the love in my heart. Like, if you want it, it is so worth it. It is so worth it. You just have to be comfortable with leaning in and doing the work. So, I wouldn't have been able to build a copywriting business had I not spent hours and hours and hours of my time learning how to do it well. Just the writing part. And then doing all of that writing on my own for years before I ever hired on my first junior copywriter to help me with it. But now my work is, how do I support my team? How do I build systems around my business? And that's still work. Every day I have to get up and I have to tell myself, you need to do this today because you love it.
And it's true. It's the fact of, yes, there's going to be an initial high, but my goodness, it's a roller coaster. And I don't know what's and I do want to get your opinion on this, but for me, it's been people that are a couple steps ahead of me, with me, and then a couple steps behind me. That's significantly helped me across this process. Support. What keeps you going when the days are hard?
I think that it's self-care is super important. Understanding that you are the engine that is driving all of this, and that you can have an incredibly supportive family or a group of other entrepreneurs or friends who are lifting you up. But at the end of the day, it is still a very solo journey and a very lonely journey at times. So you have to be comfortable with you, and you have to take care of yourself. Whatever that looks like for you. It could be reading a book, going for a walk, exercising regularly, playing with your dog, binging Netflix sometimes, like, but being very intentional about doing that every single day, just as much as you would be intentional about like sending invoices out and wanting to get paid.
Oh, that was great. That was awesome. So this is the plug part of the show. Where can people learn more about you, the company, what you guys are up to there?
Yeah. So right now you can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I hang out. That's where I live.
By the way, if you don't follow her content's phenomenal, so highly recommend you checking that out.
I will be rolling out new content very soon. I've just hired a video editor, and we're going to be, rolling out some regular content. And, that's really where I'm at. Feel free to DM me anytime you want. Send me a connection request. I don't have a heck of a lot out there in terms of content right now because, again, I am pivoting, but I'm totally happy to connect and talk to anybody that wants to chat.
And that's the thing too. We are just like anyone else. Like, you were one direct message away. Like, I tell people this all the time. Frankly, you can reach mostly anyone in the world. Just ask. Just take that.
I've talked to Brendan Kane, the author of 10 Million Followers, because I messaged him on LinkedIn. I've talked to Jonas Kopler, the one of the co-authors of the book Hustle, literally because I just sent a direct message. And I'm not saying it to like humble brag. I just sent a direct message, and now we talk.
Just to go on that, that's how I got anyone to pay attention to me for interviewing for my book, right? You just send them messages and just ask. Most people don't, right? So that's why I love that advice. Perfect. Well, I will drop your LinkedIn here again. Thank you so much for being on. It's been a while. But I'm glad we're connecting again. Again, it's such an interesting time. So please, everyone, make sure to connect with her. She's wonderful. Like, I seldom put my massive Nico stamp on people, but I've known her for like 2 years. Like, she's a day one. So I'm gonna end it here. We'll chat for a couple minutes afterwards, but appreciate everyone for being on, and stay safe,